Nostalgia is powerful. Whether it's snuggling up in a warm fleece blanket watching Christmas movies with family or taking a casual stroll through a vibrant autumn color scheme, it reminds us of a very secure and comfortable time in our lives. There are certain things in our lives, artifacts from that time period, that act as memory vessels, transporting our minds back to that time. For me, and presumably most of us watching, the nostalgia-inducing medium is most likely anime or video games. The euphoric feeling that this nostalgia instills in our minds is something special, irreplaceable, and unreplicated. I remember running home from the bus stop as fast as humanly possible to catch the newest episode of DBZ or Yu Hakusho on Toonami, often trudging through the thick Ohio snow. I was enthralled by the sanctity of Japanese animation. For some reason, it just made me feel so dang comfortable. These types of shows were starkly different from westernized cartoons, with their flamboyant animation style and detailed fight scenes just popping my teenage adolescent brain in just the most unimaginable way. Characters I could relate to, put in extraordinary situations, it just transported me really to the driver's seat, letting me experience vicariously through them. Today, I decided to take a retrospective look at one of my favorite anime from that time period, Yu Hakusho. This is an anime with so much to offer from a character development and shonen side, but often gets forgotten about due to its age. It's a story about maturity, morality, mortality. It works tirelessly to involve the viewer and really teach them about the beauty of mortality, failure, and the importance of friendship. Writer Yoshihiro Togashi takes four relative delinquents on the path for corruption or evil and places them in precarious scenarios that test their willpower and moral conscience. It's the writing of these characters and their relationships that truly sets Yu Hakusho apart from other works in the genre. Sure, most shonen have extravagant combat scenes and bombastic characters, but few really tell the story behind the scenes to the level of brilliance Togashi has achieved here. Yu Hakusho really birthed my initial interest in anime, and quite honestly, it changed my life. Now, whether that's for the better or for the worse, I won't really divulge, considering I'm a worthless weeb now, but in any sense, it really did change my life. I'm going to attempt to keep this as spoiler-free as possible, but just keep in mind the show's been out for years and years now, so I might let a few slip here and there. 14-year-old Yusuke Urameshi is a very unappreciated protagonist. He starts the series as a hard-headed derelict without a drive for school or making friends for that matter, focusing his energy almost entirely on picking fights with others around him. Once his life was changed by dying at the hands of a speeding car, his previously undiscovered purpose in the world surfaced with gusto. Botan, a grim reaper of sorts, offers to spare his mortality in return for chasing spirits and other ghosts around as a spirit detective. It didn't really sound that enticing to him at first. However, it ends up being less detective-oriented and more like busy work to Yusuke, but it proves vital to introduce the remaining main characters and develop some characterization for Yusuke himself. Essentially, it's the necessary evil for a lengthy shonen, allowing the bond to be formed with the main cast. The fights are often short and underwhelming, with Yusuke often claiming victory by way of some outside force or accidental fluke. In a way, he had a great deal in common with the demons he fought, often blindly rushing in without any really feasible strategy. I mean, he's a teenager, but it's to be expected. This understandable flaw is a true testament to his character, and how invincible he really felt was a testament to his immaturity as a teenager. His ignorance left him oblivious to the threat of his opponents. Unfortunately, this detective arc, if you will, is the weakest of the four main arcs within Hakusho's story. This causes some viewers to be turned off from the series due to its implied gimmicky tone. The narrative, Yusuke growing stronger, wanting to help save his friends and the rest of the world, is disguised under a layer of cheap fights and episodic missions. The bond Yusuke begins to form with fellow student body member Kuwabara, once a sworn enemy, and spirits Karama and Hiei are still weak and presumably exist only to propel the story forward. Though it was initially weak, the one commonality the four of them shared is what kept me engaged and committed to seeing the series through. The wanton feeling of redemption. They wanted that second chance at life. that second chance to just be human again. They began to cherish their own mortality after they were awarded with it. The second, or Dark Tournament arc, is when I began to take the show seriously. Yusuke first meets the younger Toguro brother, arguably the show's most threatening villain, and his perception of power and demons in general, it just gets flipped upside down. Seeing Toguro's strength firsthand slaps him in the face with some figurative smelling salts, and we really see Yusuke willingly training for the first time with his master Genkai to channel his true potential. The refreshing part of this training is that it doesn't finish quickly, or without some inexplicable pain on Yusuke's end. You really feel Yusuke's pain through this training. The amount of determination and desire to be the strongest that he can be is really just one of the excellent parts of the writing in this show. The same could be said for Toguro, who, without going into too much detail, learns a humbling lesson that strength isn't everything, and selfish greed only leads to loneliness and eventual defeat. I'd be blatantly doing the anime world a disservice if I didn't take the time to mention the tournament structure represented in this arc. For a teenager looking for face-exploding action, I found solace in Yu Hakusho's Dark Tournament. The fight scenes in this arc were the most nostalgic to me, and really laid the groundwork for other series adapting this concept later on throughout the years. I challenge you to try and make it through this arc without binging it at least a little bit. Something about that tournament structure, the tense, palpable air, and the ultimate displays of power that these guys show is just, it's awesome. I don't know how else to explain it. Yusuke displays perhaps his first example of growth during the tournament's fight-to-the-death structure by befriending most of his opponents during battle in lieu of vanquishing them as the rules state. In return, this causes unrest from the already rambunctious crowd, but draws a healthy amount of respect from his adversaries. Another fine point of writing from Togashi here is the sudden relevance of Kuwabara. Normally belligerent and useless, Kuwabara exhibits the fruits of his hard work by actually holding his own in combat. For once, other people are relying on him to further a just cause, not to mention the fact that he's trying to impress a certain ice demon that he has the hots for. This newfound love gives him an even greater call to arms, surprising even his friends at the tournament. Hiei and Kurama further their bond with the group throughout the rest of the tournament, not taking for granted their second chance at freedom. The Sensui, or Chapter Black arc for me, is one of the most pondering, cerebral, and dynamic arcs I've ever come across in an anime. To further develop Yusuke as a main protagonist, Togashi pens his antithesis, a former spirit detective who questioned morality and demon-human relations perhaps a bit too much. The result is a spiritually gifted human with a very different outlook on life than Yusuke himself. He became obsessed with demons and really just turned to the dark side. Up to this point, the series was very focused on efforts to become stronger and defeat opposition in a very regimented manner. When Yusuke is faced with a carbon copy of himself, a yin to his yang, he's conflicted with how to handle the situation. Now he has plenty to fight for, and his selflessness is shown on display in these episodes. The envelope is pushed to the limits for what would be the normal quota for a shonen, between the sinister tone and edgy subject matter. In some ways, this arc is strikingly similar to the Chimera Ant arc in Hunter x Hunter. During the fourth and final arc, Yusuke fully discovers who he truly is. Again, we're introduced to a tournament setting, only this time Yusuke has a much different reason for fighting. It was a nicely tied bow on top of this already successful series. Not to mention, it has a good ending. I mean, some would be quick to knock the series for ending so soon, but with criticism of Togashi's lazy artistry during the final issues of the manga, it's only fitting that the anime would drop off quickly afterward. Unfortunately, with the most attention diverted to revealing character backstories, this arc is rather dull compared to the rest of the series in my opinion. Happy tears did stream down my face prior to the final credits rolling, thankful I was able to experience such a masterpiece in the shonen genre. One of the areas Hakusho succeeds in the most is the quality of its English translation and dub. Justin Cook, Yusuke's unique voice actor, took the reins for translating this Eastern success into a Western gem. Many times, anime are either directly or sloppily translated, often leading to confusing dialogue or moments of awkward one-liners. Cook's ability to take the source material and transform it into something so digestible for the general American youth was remarkable, with some scenes holding almost entirely different meanings after its transformation. Despite the differences in some translations, Tagashi's original narrative of growing stronger and fighting to save those you love stays mostly constant throughout the series. The dialogue in the anime is another fine point. Although released in the early 90s, much of the humor and wisecracks the characters make at each other are still valid in today's culture. Camaraderie is also a very important concept within Yu Yu Hakusho. 4 generally independent characters are tied together in a twist of fate and are forced to work with one another in order to redeem themselves and protect the world. It's the anime second chance program, so to speak. Initially, the cooperation is awkward at best. Hiei is the most notorious violator of synergy within the group, still vying to handle matters solo whenever he gets a chance. Despite all the resistance and bickering, an odd couple for the ages is formed.
So I guess your legs are shaking out of eagerness.
Leave me alone, you messy! I'm just scared of heights!
Though Kurama is generally the most selfless demon, Hiei comes around and really makes sacrifices of his own during the Dark Tournament arc and beyond. As described earlier, the development of these 4 characters is refreshing and extraordinary. At the end of the series, you truly feel like you know each of these individuals through and through. As a result, the rest of the cast really takes a back seat for the most part, with the exception of Genkai and Togoro's relationship. It can be slightly off-putting if you didn't care for the main cast. As a teenage boy, nothing interested me more about TV shows than flashy fight scenes. And it just so happens that Yu Yu Hakusho has plenty of those. In fact, even though the anime is older than half the users on YouTube, really, the scenes still hold up quite well. Most of the battles are action-packed and toward the middle of the series become quite cerebral, with many moments of internal monologue and dialogue between opponents. It was hardly ever obvious who would win a fight when it started, making the suspense of it all that more satisfying. I'd say it's more on the violent side than most shonen in the present, but especially appealing to older, more mature crowds. The rest of the animation and direction could use some work. Granted, there were more limitations back in this earlier period of anime, which led to many lazily animated static scenes and reused background images. Anime, as we know it, has changed dramatically over the years, especially on the animation side, so scenes in Yu Yu Hakusho are less eccentric and vibrant than those today. If you can look past this blemish, watching the series should be no problem for you. When it comes to the soundtrack, Hakusho shows its age again. Many of the tracks are thrown in to simply silence the dead air and are often recycled again and again and again, even if the scene didn't necessarily call for it. I do like the opening, well, the first opening that is, perhaps more from a nostalgic standpoint than an actual critical one. The other ones are, take it or leave it. It's the period of anime where more attention was given to the script and less to the pretty package it came in. I can't really say that as much today. The English dub is fantastic though. So much so that it really is the superior way to watch the anime in my opinion. If you're American, that is. Just don't even waste your time with the original subbed version. Cook's portrayal of Yusuke is one of the strongest voice acting performances I've ever heard. It was rumored that he once bled from his throat and had to postpone recording after belting one of Yusuke's iconic screams. Pretty serious stuff. Chris Sabat, also the voice of Piccolo and Zoro from One Piece, is unique and talented as Kuwabara, and Chuck Huber actually nails the role of Hiei. It's a really star-studded cast here. It's on par for one of the best dubs I've ever seen. There's no doubt from this long-winded review that I really enjoy Yu Yu Hakusho. It's one of my favorite anime and played an important role in my childhood. Rewatching it as an adult reaffirmed my love for the series, and it's one that I highly recommend. Even if you aren't familiar with Dragon Ball Z or older anime, just don't close yourself off to this. If you've seen Hunter x Hunter, you need to watch Yu Yu Hakusho. Some people may be hesitant due to its age, but I urge you, look past the surface and experience the anime for all that it is. The emergence of Hakusho director Chigashi's later work has begun to overshadow his original masterpiece, but true anime fans viewing Hakusho with an open mind will see Hunter x Hunter's true inspiration come to light. It has flaws of its own, but gripping characters, a suspenseful story, and the friends you make along the way make this a shonen for the ages. Alright guys, that's going to do it for me today on this episode of Honest Anime Reviews. If you liked the video, please remember to subscribe for future anime review content, as well as hitting that like button and smashing the bell. Just obliterate it. Just take the bell and destroy it. So my reviews come to the top of your list in your subscription feed. If you really like the content, feel free to support me over on Patreon. There's definitely some exclusives over there for you guys to enjoy. And as a reminder, there are new reviews every Sunday. That's going to do it for me. I'll catch you guys next time.